Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for April 10th, 2018. Madam Clerk.
Closed session agenda. Item 1. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. 1. Cheryl Straub and Anna Lewis v. Calaveras County et al. Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV43036, and 2, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund et al. Versus County of Calaveras et al. Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV43043.
Is there any public comments on this item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Item 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, County of Calaveras v. Pacific Gas and Electric Company et al., San Francisco County Superior Court case number CGC 18564465.
Any public comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Virginia Franklin v. Board of Supervisors et al., Calaveras Superior Court case number 18CF12289.
Public comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Item 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4.
Public comments? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, one more.
Item 5, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2.
Public comments? Seeing none, we will retire to closed session.
Don't forget to take your chair memo, since there's so many.
Good morning. Welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for April 10th, 2018. Can we all stand and pledge, please? Madam Clerk, can you please lead us? Madam Clerk.
So I'd like to note for the record that the board opened their meeting at 8 a.m. There was no public present to make comment on the closed session items, so they then convened to closed session. Report of closed session held on Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018 at 1:00 p.m. in the administrative conference room. The board convened to closed session at 1:06 p.m. and reconvened to open session at 1:22 p.m., reporting the following. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, County of Calaveras v. Pacific Gas and Electric et al., San Francisco County Superior Court case number CGC 18564465. On a motion by Supervisor Garamendi and a second by Supervisor Clapp, the board unanimously agreed to authorize the board chair to sign a letter recommended for signature by the county's outside counsel addressed to Governor Brown and California legislators opposing potential legislation that could immunize PG&E from wildfire-related liability in this case. Report of today's closed session. Item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. 1, Cheryl Straub and Anna Lewis v. Calaveras County et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 18CV43036, and 2, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund et al. Versus County of Calaveras et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 18CV43043. There was no reportable action taken. Item 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, County of Calaveras v. Pacific Gas and Electric Company et al., San Francisco County Superior Court Case Number CGC 18564465. There was no reportable action taken. Item 3, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Virginia Franklin v. Board of Supervisors et al., Calaveras Superior Court Case Number 18CF12289. There was no reportable action taken. Item 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, 1 case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. There was no reportable action taken. And item 5, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 1 case, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. There was no reportable action taken.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Right?
5-minute break or? All right, thank you. Moving on. Madam Clerk, once again.
Announcements. This is a time for board members and county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Is there any board member? Supervisor Mills.
I do. Mountain Counties will be conducting a water bond session at the San Andreas Town Hall this afternoon between 3 and 4. For those that are interested, this has to do with state water bonds and how they're used, and the proposed new water bond that is maybe coming up on the November ballot. Also, a highlight this Friday in Placerville, Mountain Counties will be conducting basically a briefing. Has the state gone too far? It has to do with water rights curtailment cases, such as the Byron Bethany decision, the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan. Waste and unreasonable use seems to be a hot topic, along with water transfers, and this will be headed up by John Mills as well as Attorney Tim O'Loughlin, both very, very well versed in state water policy, and the registration on that will close this Thursday for anyone that's interested. I would strongly recommend anyone that's interested in water to take the time to go to that. There is really no charge to be there. It's just a lot of information that you're going to get in a very short period of time.
Thank you. Supervisor Olivera, your light's on?
No, he's covered it.
No?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other announcements? Staff, any announcements from staff?
Good morning. Nancy Giddens, County Librarian. I just want to remind you that this is National Library Week, and on Saturday we're going to have a wonderful event at the library, open house from 10 to 4. We'll have refreshments, demonstrations of all the great stuff we've got. We'll have our STEAM kits for kids out for you to play with, 3D printer, hopefully our visual reality system set up, and all the wonderful rearrangements so you get to see them all and be happy with us. We really invite you all to come to that. At 4 o'clock, we're going to have a very special naming ceremony to name the building, the Hubbard E. Tuttle building, honoring these two great ladies in our county who've done so much to help the library. So you're all very welcome and hope you can attend.
Thank you.
Good morning, Barbara Sullivan, Treasurer Tax Collector. I'm here to remind everyone that today is the final day to pay your second installment of taxes. Not as fun as the library, but But it is the final day at 5 p.m., or you can have it postmarked. I feel bad for people in TV land can't see this, but postmark is good too, 5 o'clock. So just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other staff member? All right, if not, moving on. Madam Clerk.
Recognition and acknowledgements. The first item is from Public Works to adopt a proclamation recognizing and honoring Don Seaman for 26 years of distinguished public service in the Public Works Road and Bridges Division.
Mr. Krovitz.
Thank you, Jeff Krovitz, Public Works. Don Seaman has notified us that he's retiring after 26 years on our road and bridges crew. Don has been known throughout his career for his consistency, his commitment, his vast historical knowledge. He worked out of the Glencoe yard for 26 years, and he's always been our go-to guy when we call out overtime or in the middle of a storm where we need a response. He's never said no, and he's always been there. So I think that the recognition is not only well-deserved, but important. Thank you.
Supervisor Oliveira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I have before me a proclamation. A proclamation recognizing and honoring Don Seaman for 26 years of distinguished public service in the Public Works Roads and Bridges Division. Whereas, Don Seaman has served the public for 26 years in positions of increasing knowledge and diversity. In 1992, Don started his career as a road maintenance worker 1, and gradually worked his way up the ladder, eventually becoming a road maintenance worker 2. And whereas Don brought a positive attitude and vast knowledge and wealth of experience every day, Don's talents and experience help him accomplish various tasks throughout his 26 years of service. And whereas Don routinely covered overtime and snow removal shifts, Don's historical knowledge that was instrumental during the Butte Fire and other disaster recovery efforts. And whereas all who have worked with Don have benefited from his knowledge and years of commitment to the Calaveras County Road Department. His service has been marked by exemplary and energetic leadership within the Public Works Department. And whereas Don will be sorely missed by staff and those he worked with, who found him a devoted friend and co-worker.
All right, at this time, I'll open for public comments. Do you have any public comments?
All the people in here, and I'm the only public comment. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I have some good news. There's interest in draining the swamp at the federal level. And yeah.
This has to do with this proclamation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was in public comments. Well,
We didn't have Don do any swamp work.
well,
We haven't got to public comments yet.
I will approach our board to nominate the retiree for our award for excellence in public service.
Good recovery, Al.
I would like to thank him for his service. I also hope that the county will be able to fund his CalPERS since they've cut the budget and not been able to see their way clear to keep taxes flowing in this county. But hey, we don't need tax money, do we, to fund CalPERS? Thanks.
Any other public comments? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. Any board comments?
I think we're getting on as we get on in our years, we're finding that people are serving shorter and shorter periods of time in any one position or career. And it's exemplary that Don could put in a full 25 years in a public service position like this. So congratulations, kudos for a job well done.
So I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
A motion by Supervisor Mills,
Second.
second by Supervisor Clapp. All for a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Mr. Oliveira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors wish to extend their deepest appreciation to Don Seaman for his dedication and strong leadership. And thanks, Don Seaman, for his 26 years of contributions to the public. And be it further proclaimed that the board wishes Don Seaman a long and happy retirement. Passed and adopted this 10th by the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors on the 10th day of April, 2018.
Yeah.
Don, are you here? Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Is there someone representing? Jeff, do you want? Jeff?
Don must be out removing snow.
Ready? Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Item number 7 is from the library to adopt a proclamation recognizing and thanking the Calaveras County Library volunteers.
Ms. Giddens.
Nancy Giddens, County Librarian. I just want to say that libraries all over America depend on volunteers. People who love libraries, who love to help, and love to be busy are part of a very important part of the success of our library operation in Calaveras County. To date, we have 86 active volunteers, 3 more waiting for orientation, who work weekly in our library system throughout the county. Today, we have those volunteers, and I'd like to ask them to stand, from Arnold, from Angels Camp, Copperopolis, Mokelumne Hill, West Point, Valley Springs, and San Andreas. So all of these people, together with 62 others who serve on Friends of the Library local boards and county board, as well as the Library Commission, give us labor that is the equivalent of 5 full-time employees every week. They're just amazing. It's not an exaggeration to say that without them, we would have a difficult time, probably an impossible time, offering the services that we want and need in our community. During this special week in the National Library World, National Library Week, I'm proud to recognize and affirm these fine people who work so hard for us. They get your books, CDs, and DVDs ready to circulate. They help when you have a technology question. They repair damaged materials. They tell stories to children, plan special programs, and help us organize and use our donations, magazines, and CDs. They take care of hundreds of details, which help our limited staff, and they do all of this without pay. Thank you, volunteers, and thank you, Board of Supervisors, for recognizing them today.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to read this proclamation today. I think we love our libraries, and they are truly a heartbeat in our community, and as part of our community, our volunteers really keep them going. And I appreciate people coming all the way down the hill, and a lot of people came from a long ways for today, and I appreciate all that you do. So, no further ado. This is a proclamation recognizing the Calaveras County Library volunteers and thanking them for their service to our library system. Whereas, during the week of April 8th to 14th, 2018, we are celebrating National Library Week in Calaveras County. And whereas libraries all over the nation rely upon the help of volunteers who love and support the efforts of the library in their communities. And whereas Calaveras County is fortunate to have almost 100 people who volunteer weekly throughout our Calaveras County library system. And whereas these volunteers work steadfastly and tirelessly to assist with tasks which enhance library service and materials. And whereas these volunteers label and cover books and media, repair damaged materials, sort donations, shelve books, assist patrons, help with technology, and a myriad of other things which free library staff to do more technical work. And whereas the hours of our volunteers' work is the equivalent of 5 full-time employee staff to our county.
At this point, we'll open it up to public comment. We have public comment on this item.
Library. I want to thank everybody that volunteers for the library, especially for the reading programs. To the young children, our granddaughter, when she comes to visit, we try to get her down to one of the reading sessions. She loves being read to in the evenings. Of course, she loves going to the library and sitting in the room with all the rest of the kids and listening to story time. I want to thank all of you that volunteer. Thank you, because this county's going to need it.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Look for a motion.
So move.
Motion by Supervisor Garamendi,
Second, Mr. Chair.
second by Oliveira. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Therefore, be it proclaimed that on this day, April 10th, 2018, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors recognizes and thanks the volunteers who serve the Calaveras County Library so well. Thank you very, very much. And if you could all come up, I'd like to give this speech.
We have a weight bearing problem here.
Push in all close, like you like each other. I need something like the more than what I'm doing. Okay, you come forward, just, there you go, good. Okay, who can't I see? Oh, short people need to go in the front, come on. There you go. Yay. Okay, I need you to be behind her. Oh, that's good. Okay, nobody on this side move. You move in just a little. There you go. Okay. Okay, I think I might be able to do this. Oh. Okay, I'm going to take a couple. Everybody smile. Okay, everybody say, we love the library. Thank you.
We'll give him a minute here to file out.
Okay.
All right, Madam Clerk, moving on.
Public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen. My name is Deborah Kushner, and I live in Arnold, and I'm an avid volunteer of the library. I just got my picture taken. I just wanted to let you all know that for all of you fans of Clive Cussler, that we have one of his co-authors coming to Arnold, the Arnold Library. It's on April 21st, next Saturday, a week from Saturday, from 1 to 3, and we'll be meeting actually at the fire station because we expect a lot of people and they have a meeting room there. So 1 to 3 on April 21st at the fire station in Arnold. You'll get to meet Robin Bursell, who wrote the Pirates series. She co-writes with Clive Cussler, and I know her personally, and she actually, it's not like a James Patterson thing. She actually collaborates with him on a regular basis when she writes. So all are welcome. There's no fee to come. Just call and let us know you're coming so we know how many to expect. Thank you very much.
Good morning, gentlemen. Public comment. Oh, boy. I have a couple of things here that I'm going to hand to Diane for a minute, if she wants. There's one for the gang up there. Basically, one of those is an article that I found in a newspaper where there have been 12 eradications of indoor grows in our county. It wasn't published in our papers. It was published in the Modesto Bee. It was a federal joint task force of 100 separate, only 12 of them were here in the county. The second one is a list from Cal Cannabis, and it shows the licensees that have applied for temporary licenses in Calaveras County and what they're estimated to produce this year. Were they allowed to continue to grow? Under Measure C, since we're now under state licensing, without any regulation in the county, we have a ban at this point that goes into effect in June, I believe. You can see that the estimate there says we should be growing somewhere around 360,000 pounds of cannabis. Now, under Measure C, which the voters did vote for, many of you on this board said they should vote for Measure C, we would collect $45 a pound. Can you do the math? 45 times 365,000, gentlemen. Not 12.5 million, which you collected under Measure C at $2 a square foot, but 365,000 times $45. Chump change, right? Chump change. Anyway, one of the other things I'd like to announce to the board, we are very proud. We received word from a person who used our RSO. Those of you not familiar with RSO, because you're not necessarily cannabis oriented, is what's called Rick Simpson oil. He's a gentleman who used his time to combat cancer with cannabis. And they are now cancer-free. Cancer-free. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I don't want to give you that.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. Barbara Sullivan didn't need to remind me about my taxes. I always wait till the last minute. I always think if I croak before the last minute, you all will have my money and I won't be able to come and hound you about how you're spending my property tax money. So, but I always pay my taxes. I'm never late. I despise people that are late on their taxes. To me, it sounds like avoiding a responsibility. Something else that I thought of, something else that irks me is people that file bankruptcy. I know it's a legal thing to do and you have the right, but to me it's shirking your responsibility. When someone does not own up to their credit, their creditors, they're forcing other people to step forward and make up for them. I'm sure none of you have filed bankruptcy because I would have the utmost disregard for you. But what I would like to say is that it's like when the PG&E let us know that the customers are going to be paying for the Butte Fire compensation. Someone's always got to pay. And if it isn't the person that's lived beyond their means, that has established credit and has decided to let somebody else pay for their shortcomings, it's always the little guy in the end. Probably the minimum wage worker that grubs around in the dirt, so a bunch of CEOs and high-paid executives will retain their status. And I'm a money-grubbing, I'm a dirt-grubbing taxpayer that always lives up to my responsibilities. And I feel it's an honor to pay taxes. It means I've established some sort of success. And in the next year, if we find ourselves in the hole, in the red, not able to pay for what we want to pay for, I would suggest that you double everyone's property taxes so we'll have enough money to pay for all of our expenses. I hope Al doesn't trip me on my way back, but I think we need to not live beyond our means, live up to our obligations, and pay what is we're obligated to pay for. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Roger Stevenson. I'm a retired builder in Arnold for the last 25 years, retired for 3. I'm president of the Calaveras Builders Association. I've, in my few years of retirement now, been concerned with the growing homeless population in this country. I spent a lot of time at the Stockton Sailing Club, and the homeless encampment there is getting out of hand along the Delta, and I built the First American Baptist Church 20 years ago in Arnold. It's called Oak Circle Community Church now, but there's a growing homeless problem there now. We have people camping around our church. A few years ago, they created a few acre fire that threatened our church, and it's in National Forest. Actually, we're at the foot of the Arnold Rim Trail. But I got the idea to start a foundation, Habitat for Homeless, and my motto is going to be fostering dignity and nomadity. Part of my ancestry goes back to Cherokee, and I think that society today has really reduced nomadic life to a very indignant way of living, and people have nowhere to even go to the bathroom, which is the biggest problem. And I have a few people that I'm helping around my house that live in sheds or wherever they can find, a half a dozen to a dozen people that I know that are homeless in Arnold, and it's cold up there in the winter. Of course, that's not as big of an issue today, but it was a few months ago or even last month. But my concept is to go to town and county councils and appeal for a variance to allow camping at our church facility on our property. I don't know if you have any concept of where we are, but we're in the back of Cedar Center at the very back of Oak Circle Court, which is a cul-de-sac and is where a lot of people park to go on the Arnold Rim Trail. And ultimately, that trail is going to tie into a lot of other hiking trails. But I would like to start a small facility. I built that church 20 years ago in the back for people to take a shower and do some laundry and go to the bathroom in privacy with proper sanitation. And our church doesn't have a lot of members anymore. We've lost most of our members since the recession. But what I'm asking for is a variance.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I want to know how
thank you.
to
Thank you, sir.
proceed.
Time is up. Thank you.
Good morning, Greg Gustafson. Campaign season once again, and I'm reluctant to jump into this thing too aggressively because I've already had hundreds of dollars worth of signs stolen within hours of placement, and it concerns me. I don't know who to blame or who to point the finger to, and I don't think it's my fellow competitors, however. I think it's someone else, but if I have to put a computer chip into the signs or some other method, they seem to disappear within hours in the daylight. So if that's the way it's going to be, I'm glad to think that I'm a threat to somebody. I'm just an average guy wanting to do an average job and do it well for the people that I would be representing. So I don't think it's fair that I should have to invest money only to have it stolen. I see a lot of the other signs are still in place, so it's obviously personal. So I'm going to try and get to the bottom of it and ask anybody for assistance that would be willing to help me on this issue. If anyone sees anyone steal a sign, please let me know, or some official know. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Board. I want to go back about a year and a half ago when the committee had started working on Measure B. At that point in time, we had done a lot of research, and we were preparing our statements for the voter's manual and all that kind of thing. And we had mentioned the amount of help that the federal government could bring to the fight if we had a ban. At that point in time, people started calling us liars, deceivers, you name it. They said it wasn't going to happen. We've continued our efforts with the federal government, and most recently, even the sheriff admitted that a year and a half ago, he talked with federal authorities, and he was told that the feds did not have money and they would not be coming. At that same time, a year and a half ago, we were talking with the feds. We were told that there is money and they will be coming. Since then, the committee has expanded its efforts to reach out to Attorney General Sessions and to other people in Washington, D.C. We've sent them a lot of material on the crime in Calaveras County, what's going on with the violation of federal law here, what's going on with the destruction of our environment, and we've got partners in Washington, D.C. The most recent proof of that is the raid that was conducted in Sacramento, which also spilled over into Calaveras County. It's our information that some 500 officials from the federal agencies descended on Sacramento County and took out 100 houses, approximately 100 houses, and seized 74 properties. Now, there's some sort of magic formula that exists somewhere, and they took down 12 houses in Calaveras County. I know there's a formula for revenue sharing between the feds and local officials when they take down properties and seize them, when the IRS seizes them, and when the feds take over the investigation. So I hope that we can get some explanation to kind of straighten that out so people understand that, yes, we can afford the ban. Yes, the feds have money, and yes, they're coming. They've already been here. So I hope that we can move forward with this and get rid of all of these, this misinformation that the feds are not going to help us. When you look at the list of agencies that participated, it includes the FBI, ICE, IRS, Homeland Security, U.S. Marshals, Air and Mobile Services. The alphabet soup goes on forever. This does not indicate that the feds are reluctant to come in and help us. So I hope we encourage them. You have a sheet that has addresses and phone numbers. We're encouraging all citizens to contact and say thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Board. Trevor Whitkey, Calaveras Cannabis Alliance, District 2. So nobody's ever argued that the federal government isn't involved in enforcement of marijuana laws on a federal level. However, there's the Rohrabacher-Blumenauer Amendment, which was included in the omnibus spending bill, which precludes the federal government from spending money to prosecute people or enforce medical marijuana, or enforce federal law in states where people are operating within legal medical situations. In California, everybody in Calaveras County, we all got permits. We all signed up with you. They cannot spend a dime to enforce against us specifically. Last year, you guys took $32,000 from the DEA for helicopter enforcement. The year before that, the previous board had taken in $40,000. The argument that was made last year with regard to Measure B and the misinformation that was being made by the ban committee was they said that there was billions of dollars to be had. $32,000 does not make billions. Now, you guys, I believe today, are going to be getting another potential installment. It's on the consent agenda. And nobody counters the fact that you guys are totally able to receive federal funding to go after illicit cultivation. We would love for you to do it. We've been supportive for years of those efforts. We have encouraged the board to take federal funding and enforce against illicit farms. As of last year, Measure C bills went out. 500 of us permitted farmers got bills. We paid our taxes. You guys got roughly $13 million in Measure C tax revenues last year. You spent a lot of that money. And guess what? We were operating legally, permitted by all of you. All of you approved the budgets that spent that money. If we're criminals, so are you. But we're not, and neither are you. And the reason for that is because the state of California passed laws, and all of us followed those laws. And the people who didn't follow those laws are absolutely subject to prosecution, locally, at the state level, and the federal level. Unfortunately, 1,000 cultivators were able to cultivate illegally last year, and they didn't have to suffer the consequences. I think 200 abated. Now, that's a good start, but it's a drop in the bucket. And without Measure C funds, you're not going to be able to enforce this. $30,000 a year isn't going to cut it. Thank you for your time, Board.
Good morning. My name's Stacy Fairchild, and I just want to let everyone know that I do have Supervisor Tofinelli's recall petitions in hand. If anyone, I'm going to be going to the library reception soon, but I'll wait outside for 5 minutes if anyone wants to sign or take one to circulate. We will also be manning a table at Marval in Valley Springs on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We need just under 1,400 signatures to get this on the ballot in November. Thank you.
Good morning. Since the ban passed, I've spent a considerable amount of time observing the Garamendi recall campaign, watching dedicated people driven by persecution by pot growers coming out and spending time in all kinds of inclement weather.
They have endured some of the pot growers asking their names and where they live, thus intimidating them in a very personal way. What can you expect of a federally illegal industry whose aim is to addict young people, old people, fetuses, and everyone in between, so they can stuff their pockets with ill-gotten gain? Certain parties have parked their vehicles multiple locations in front of the signature gatherers so they could not be seen. This happening numerous times. Some of these have been deliberately argumentative and insightful of the recall workers, hoping they would lose their cool when they are trying to use a legal avenue to protect their quality of life and the integrity of the environment, including water immediate to their homes and lands. In Mountain Ranch, I was shocked as I watched what looked like drug deals going down across from Cinders and Girl Scout cookie sellers. Some said pot was often the mode of Bitcoin exchange there, and if they had enough pot left over, they could go down an adjacent street, past the post office, and exchange it for another kind of carnal goodie. It made me wonder, at the time, if human trafficking was involved with the goodies offered there. Even the target of the recall showed up, and in doing so intimidated the recall workers, though I did not see this particular event. Apparently, the target also called some of the signatories of the recall petition. This is very upsetting to all of us, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Yes, Trent Fiorino, and I'd just like to stand up and represent District 1 and the supporters of Gary Toffanelli. You know, from the over a year that I've been attending these meetings, that we didn't start out on probably the best of terms, because I didn't think he was doing a good job for our district. But I've taken the time, I've come to the meetings, I've sat and I've watched and I've listened, and I've come to appreciate this board quite a bit, and especially appreciate Gary Toffanelli, the work that he put in. I've seen that he is a man that sticks to his word, does his homework, comes in prepared, and he's changed my opinion of him. And I would like this to go out publicly. Do not sign the recall. We are well represented. We don't need to replace him. We need to keep him. And I just want to challenge anybody that hears this, if you see the recall petitions, walk away from them, don't sign them. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Mike Falvey, live in Golden Hills, District 2. Number one, right off the bat, to me, a recall should be initiated by a sitting supervisor's constituents. District 1 is not District 2's constituency. So that's what I find interesting is the majority of the people manning these stands, which I haven't stopped at any of them. I haven't harassed anybody. I haven't questioned them what they're doing. You know, you live in Valley Springs. What's your interest so much about District 2, for instance? Or what's District 2 doing in District 1 leading a recall? I don't understand that. And if certain people who speak to the board represent the recall profile, you're okay, Jack. Don't worry about it. Number two, as far as federal funding is concerned, I don't know who the committee is, but I don't know if they're aware who our president is. He's battling with our governor. He's having arguments with the mayor of Oakland. He's having arguments with officials on our southern border about the wall. He's calling California basically a bunch of fruitcakes and nutcases. Oh, sure. I'm sure he's going to commit a lot of federal funding to any kind of battle the committee sees coming on. let's deal with reality, folks. Look at the presidency, what he's doing, and tell me that he's going to commit funds to California. It's a pipe dream.
Other public comments?
Joan Wilson, District 1. Things have been a little confusing. There was a vote for Measure C, and that was voted in, that they wanted to tax cannabis. And then we were told that you didn't need that money. And then the board voted to use that money to balance the budget. The board did a really good job of getting rid of an industry that the state of California has said, this is what you're allowed to use on this agricultural product. It basically has to be organic. However, the board, being economically minded, as they are, has decided not to get rid of other agricultural products that do not have to be grown organically, but have been able to use products that could possibly seep into our water and things like that, that we wanted to get rid of this organic product because of those reasons? Or is it possible that maybe we are lumping a bunch of legal people in with a bunch of illegal people and who paid taxes to help get rid of these illegal people? This is very confusing because it appears to me that this county is very much in favor of non-organic products, products that use all kinds of really bad pesticides and rodicides and things like that, and in favor of those, and don't want the tax money to get rid of people that are doing things illegally. You want the people that are doing things illegally to be here, and you want the chemicals that are bad for us used here. I'm confused. Thank you.
We're out of time. Board clerk, we're at our 30-minute limit. We are at our 30-minute limit. Sorry.
Perfect. I can come back later at the end of the
Yeah, yes, at the end of the meeting, regular meeting, we'll allow more public comments. All right. We need to take a break, I'm told by Madam Clerk. We're going to take a 10-minute, 15-minute break. All right, we are back in session. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda. The consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Any board member wish to pull an item?
I've had my questions answered, so I don't need to.
No? Any other board member? No. Any staff member wish to pull an item? See none. Any member from the public? Yes. Can you speak loud? Can you stand up so you? Number 10. Any other?
Number 12.
12. Any other? If not, I'll bring it back to the board. I'm looking for a motion for the remainder.
I'll move the item.
I have a motion by Supervisor Clapp. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Bill, can you come to the microphone? You have a question on item number 10.
Can I read it?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Madam Clerk.
So item 10 is from the Sheriff's Office to authorize the board chair to sign the First Amendment of the As-Needed Services Agreement with Sierra Air Helicopter by increasing the not-to-exceed total compensation amount for year 2 by $10,000 and for year 3 by $30,000, a total increase to the As-Needed Services Agreement in the not-to-exceed amount of $40,000.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I had a question about this item when I went through and, excuse me, and pulled the packet. As I remember, when the helicopter contracts first came up, there were 2 or 3 contracts that were let, as I remember. I'll stand corrected if that's not the number. I presume this is one of those that was selected the last time around. I don't have a problem with you guys allocating more money for helicopter services. The first time through, and it was also mentioned in the packet, the services are for reconnaissance and or eradication. So since we're only increasing the amount of money for one helicopter contract, is it safe to presume that the other contracts have already been fulfilled? Or have we not spent money there? Or is there any kind of general accounting for the use of helicopters? Maybe in the realm of reconnaissance, I mean, are we giving people rides, supervisors, staff members around the county to look at pot with helicopter money, or are we dragging nets out there to go eradicate stuff? It didn't change, I don't think it changed the purpose of the contract, just the funding. But if someone could address kind of where we left off with the other companies, and did we run out of money for this particular contract and we need to go forward because they're providing a good service? Thank you.
Jim, just a second. Is there any other public comment or any other questions on this item? So you can add, if there is, we can address them all at one time. If no other public comment, then I'll close it. Jim, you want to come up and answer questions?
Good morning, Jim Aceto. I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Office. To address those questions, no, we are not providing politicians or supervisors rides in the helicopter or helicopters. With respect to this particular contract in general, when you have a contract with multiple vendors, especially when it's a new contract, you try to build a certain amount of flexibility within the contract. Just like a private business person would have contracts with other vendors, as you start to utilize those vendors, at times you'll find one provides a better service, maybe is more accommodating, or their equipment benefits you at a better fashion, depending upon the particular work of the day or the mission or the assignment. There's not a significant problem with the other vendors. The staff is also trying to plan forward. We can't hustle over to the board when we're right up against exceeding the contract amount, especially if we have a mission plan for a couple of days out. As you all know, it takes time to get items before the board. So what we're doing here is we're building some flexibility in case we do get up against the maximum amount allotted to allow the extension. And we are also, just with any other contract, we're filling people out. And in doing so, we're determining who better fits our particular needs. With respect to the reconnaissance versus the workhorse operations of, sling loading marijuana out, it really depends on the particular case. It depends on the terrain. It depends on staff availability. It depends on expertise of the individual in the helicopter. Believe it or not, there is some expertise required to identify marijuana, although it's been much easier in recent years. It was not always so difficult to spot, and at times there are still mistakes made as far as people believing that they can see and completely identify or verify that it's marijuana from the air. So I think that has hopefully addressed all the questions here today.
Excuse me. His alarm's going off in the parking lot on your vehicle. On your vehicle.
Thank you.
Okay. Just letting you know.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I forgot my question. I withdraw my question.
So I'll look for a motion for this item. We have a motion by Supervisor Olivera,
Second?
second by Supervisor Mills. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, item number 12.
Item 12 is from the Planning Department to approve budget transfer from contingency to the Planning Department for reimbursement for consultant work under the U-Plan program for general plan update, land use, and transportation modeling in the amount of $36,417. Requires a 4/5 vote of the board.
Mr. Segalia, you pulled this item.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Now, Sagala Taxpayer Association. Mainly, I'd like some clarification on a U plan. I'm not familiar with that. Could somebody explain that?
Is there any other public comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I'll close it and have Mr. Maurer answer Mr. Segalia's question.
So the U-Plan is a traffic and land use modeling program that was developed in cooperation with UC Davis, the Amador County Transportation Commission, and the Calaveras County Council of Governments. Calaveras Council of Governments. We have utilized that program in modeling for the general plan update, and particularly for the traffic modeling to see, where we use the basis of the U-Plan to look at distribution of new development, and then that is then used in the traffic modeling for impacts to roads and services. So the funding for the program came from a grant from Caltrans. It was granted to the Amador County Transportation Commission. It was shared with COG. We have an agreement with COG to be reimbursed for the costs of the traffic consultant for the general plan. So this money was allocated in a prior contract with COG up to $56,000, I believe, that they would reimburse us for our costs for consultant work. And so this, the $36,000 has already been transferred to the county, and is now, it's just, we need to have that to pay the consultants. The reason it's before you today is because the money was allocated to last year's budget rather than this year's budget, so it's an accounting cleanup issue. Any other questions?
All right, thank you. So I will bring it back to the board.
I'll move the items, Chair.
The motion by Supervisor Mills,
I second it.
second by Supervisor Platt. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Madam Clerk, regular agenda.
Item 20 is from the Administrative Office to receive a presentation from the Mark Twain Healthcare District on the history of the district and the upcoming ballot measure on the district hospital provider contract.
Dr. Smart.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I did want to show some slides. I still don't know if we have the capability to do that.
Okay, you need a break? Couple minute break while they set up here for a presentation. Okay, we're back.
So I want to thank you for giving the healthcare district some time on your agenda this morning. Very much appreciated. My presentation is 10 to 15 minutes. I'm Dr. Randy Smart. I'm the executive director of the healthcare district. We're a special district. We're countywide. I'm here with two board members this morning. One is our president, Lynn Reed, and the other is our member at large, Debbie Selleck. And the reason we're here this morning is we're not here looking for any board action or county process. We're simply here as an informational item. And the informational item is about Measure A and the value of Measure A to the county, both the healthcare value and the economic value to the county. On February 12th, your board passed a resolution putting Measure A on the ballot. That was on your consent agenda, and that's scheduled to be on the June ballot. Measure A, I think, is probably one of the most important healthcare decisions this county has made in at least the last 25 years, and in my opinion, maybe ever to date. And we can't afford to let Measure A fail. But before I go through the details of Measure A and why it's important, I wanted to take you through just a little bit of history, because I think the history here is so important. In 1890, this county faced our first healthcare crisis. And that crisis was about not having a hospital. We had had some tent hospitals, which I've mentioned in the past, some mining hospitals, but we didn't have a hospital. And in 1890, the Board of Supervisors committed to building a hospital. In fact, the land was donated by a county citizen, and this is the hospital our predecessors built in 1890. Well, hope I didn't break it. So this was a beautiful Victorian facility. It actually, I believe, sat on the same ground we're meeting on today. I've got a laser pointer here. Am I allowed to
Yeah.
I won't get arrested or anything?
No, you're fine.
So this was the beautiful Victorian facility, and right over here would have been the Red Barn. And this facility served our county for a long time, you guys. Just treated a lot of patients, did a lot of surgery, saved a lot of lives. There's still a cemetery right up the hill related to the hospital. And in its heyday, it became this beautiful campus that had palm trees, had orchards, had working patients, nurses living there. And the problem is, about 60 years into this history, the building really became run down and condemned. And this is one of the last pictures of our old county hospital. This was taken in 1951. And in 1951, it had holes in the roof, holes in the floors. It became a Girl Scout house for a couple of years, and then ultimately, you appropriately decided to tear it down. Tough day. And it was hauled off and replaced with the government building. So we then had a new problem in 1946, and the new problem is we had no hospital. And so our county really rallied. We did a couple things. The voters petitioned you to form a healthcare district. That's the Mark Twain Healthcare District. You formed it in 1946, or the voters did. And that healthcare district is the one that serves you today. It's the one I'm the director of. And the healthcare district basically built the Mark Twain Hospital. And this is right across the street. I know you're all familiar with it. But the Mark Twain Hospital was really built with our money, and it was built with our labor, and it was built by our grandparents, and it was just a fabulous place. It was the flagship of healthcare in this county. And so this hospital expanded and succeeded, and the reason it did that is because of county support, not county government support. I'm sure that was there, but we're talking about Rotary support, auxiliary support, Lions Club, private businesses, all stood up and said, this is a really important institution in our county, and we really need to make sure it survives. So fast forward to 1970, this is the campus, the healthcare campus that was formed in 1970. And that healthcare campus included wards for patients. I think there was something like 80 beds. It included operating rooms. You can see a helipad here to fly patients in and out that were more complicated. But it really became a flagship for the county. And the problem is, as we move toward 1980, we can go back. We developed some financial challenges, and those financial challenges were imposed by the federal government, the state government, and reimbursement methodology changed. And by the time we got to about 1988, this hospital and its campus was bankrupt. We had no money. We couldn't make our payroll obligations. We couldn't buy bandaging. Everything that was shipped to the hospital was shipped COD. So in the 1980s, we ran into trouble. We had a healthcare crisis in this county, and we rallied. And the way we rallied is the healthcare district started looking for partners, affiliations. And they found St. Joseph's in Stockton, and they were able to brilliantly put together a affiliation proposal that, I'll have to be honest with you, really benefited us much more than it benefited Stockton or St. Joseph's Hospital. And that affiliation is still in place today. That's the affiliation that we're operating under today. Now, that's a 30-year lease, and a 30-year lease by state law cannot be extended. So that lease expires next year, and we have to have a solution for what to do next year. So with the affiliation, thank you, we were able to build a $19 million addition to our hospital. This is the old hospital back here, Mountain Ranch Road here. This is the $19 million addition. And a big chunk of that money came from our citizens. $3-4 million came from our citizens. So we built this expansion, which included pretty much all the things you would find in a modern hospital. It included a modern CT scanner, and we still have one of the best CT scanners in Northern California, believe it or not. It included a modern operating room. This is my colleague, Craig Lovett. He's about to do a total knee replacement. This isn't a staged picture, this is a real picture, but the point here being is we don't have a rundown hospital. We have a state-of-the-art hospital. We just need to figure out how to keep it state-of-the-art. So this is one of my favorite pictures. This is a Google Earth picture, and this is now what's become the Mark Twain healthcare system, not the hospital, the system. I think they still call themselves the medical center, but now they're a system. And so in this picture, you can see Mountain Ranch Road. We're right up here. This is the old hospital here. This is that $19 million new addition. But this is what's really cool about this picture. Right down here is an oncology cancer center. There's an infusion center for blood transfusions, IV antibiotics, chemotherapy. There's a pain clinic right here. There is an allergy clinic right next to that, a neurology clinic, and then the public health service. Next to that is a specialty center that includes urology, includes gynecologic surgery, includes general surgery, includes orthopedic surgery. And right next to that is a family medical center that includes occupational health, and right next to that is a convalescent hospital. So this has become a giant, high-value healthcare system that serves our county. Now, it was under that relationship that we were able to expand off our main campus in San Andreas. We put together a family medical center in Arnold, Angels Camp, Copperopolis, Valley Springs, so we became more county-wide. And that was our mission statement, our responsibility, and we're continuing to do that. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So in 2015, we needed to figure out where to go with this hospital. We can't extend the old relationship. And we put out RFPs to corporations in Northern California, several, Sutter Health, Kaiser, Adventist Health. We had many, many town hall meetings. I think the next slide is a town hall meeting. Yeah, we had many town hall meetings. Lots of people showed up. We talked to hundreds of people in this county about what they want, how to get there. We met with the medical staff at the hospital, the doctors, and said, what do you want? How can we make this work together? And then we met with the employees. And keep in mind, there's over 300 employees in this healthcare system now. So it's not a minor economic force in this county, it's a significant economic force. I think there's 324 to be exact. Next slide. So this was a great day. This is January 24th of this year, and this is the day our healthcare district accepted the term sheet from Dignity Health, passed a resolution, and forwarded it to the county. And we believe that lease and that term sheet really does a lot for this county. It provides us, well, the most important thing about the term sheet is we still own the hospital. We're not selling the hospital. We own the hospital. We're going to own it 30 years from now. We may take it back. Who knows? It also ensures that we keep the same number of beds in our hospital. It requires that. It ensures we keep the same services. So the services we have now, like nuclear medicine, oncology, occupational health, those cannot be closed under this lease unless we locally at the district level approve that. That's huge. Because you're negotiating with a $16 billion company, and that doesn't give you a lot of leverage, and we got a lot out of this lease. What's really important is it doesn't cost the county government a cent. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't pay any money into this. And what's even better is your constituents don't pay any money into this. There isn't a taxpayer in this county that's going to pay any extra taxes or have their tax bill changed by this lease. Next slide. So the lease also gives us the opportunity to build some clinics in this county, and we haven't built any clinics in the last 40 years. We've rented some space, but we really haven't built anything. We haven't really done with the infrastructure what I want to do. And so this is an artist rendition of the clinic we intend to build in Valley Springs. This clinic is 10,000 square feet, has 12 treatment rooms, has 3 dental rooms. It has the capacity to treat 15,000 appointments a year. And when we have done the feasibility studies, we'll need much more than 15,000, but 15,000 is way more than we do right now. So we believe we're going to move dirt this year, probably August, and we believe we're going to open the door a year later, August of next year, and it'll be a district-run clinic. We're really excited about that. It also allows a clinic to be built in Angels Camp. And this is an artist rendition of the Angels Camp Clinic. It's not a particularly great rendition, but that's what they came up with. So it has kind of the gold mining, mother lode facade out front, but as it goes back, it also has 10,000 square feet. And it also has the capacity to provide many more appointments in healthcare than we have right now. So this new lease in Measure A gives us the ability to build these clinics because it brings money into this county. It brings almost $12 million to the district, to the healthcare district. And that's money we can turn back into healthcare. That's our mission. That's money we can take back to the county, back to the citizens, and turn it into healthcare. And we can fill some really important healthcare gaps, like behavioral health, pediatrics, just a number of things, school clinics that are not being done right now, educational programs. So we're very excited about that opportunity. In fact, we're so excited about the opportunity, we're already planning on how to spend the money and where to spend it on. Although we can't spend it all, we need to save some. We have some seismic issues that we need to deal with, and we also need to make sure we can buy our hospital back in 30 years. But it provides a great economic opportunity for this county. And so the reason I'm up here today is you as county leaders can help us send this message out. Our polling right now is polling really favorably. We hit about 65% in favor, 20% undecided. So that looks really positive to us, but we don't want to assume we're going to win this election. We don't want to assume Measure A is going to pass. So I know you guys are out there talking to people. I know you command a lot of respect in the county. And if you can get the message on Measure A out, that's really why we're here today. But I also wanted to tell you that Measure A is probably not enough. It's enough for a little while, but rural health care is really in jeopardy. Since 2010, 83 rural hospitals have closed. They're predicting another 400 are vulnerable. 400 rural hospitals in this nation could close in the next 10 years. We don't want to be one of them. But Measure A is the first step to prevent that. But really the second step is this county, its citizens, its public, and its leaders have to really support healthcare in this county. We can't abandon it and walk away. We can't say, well, I don't like the emergency room, therefore I'm going to Sonora. Or I didn't like my doctor, he was mean to me, therefore I'm going to Amador. We have to stand up and support this, otherwise we'll lose it. And if we lose it, I don't know much, but I know this, we will never get it back. We'll become a medical desert without a hospital. And that has ramifications. It's not only the hospital, it's the 5 clinics that are associated with it, but think about the physical therapists in the county, occupational therapists, think about the pharmacists in the county. I think there's 4 pharmacy private practices in this county. I mean, if you start thinking about the economic and business damage that could happen in a medical desert, this could be an issue that we've not seen before and have consequences we haven't seen before. So number 1, we need to get through Measure A. Number 2, we need to lead the way. We need to make sure the people in this county support the hospital, support healthcare infrastructure, and as a healthcare leader, we need to make sure they get the best care we can give them. This lease is kind of a new day for us. It's not the same old thing. It's not, oh yeah, Mark Twain Hospital, I had a bad experience, or my uncle had it. This is a new day for us, and it's a good day. So we need to stand up and support it. I would like to come back here someday and tell you how that's going and tell you what we need. So I think I'll shut up. I could go on a while. I think I'll stop. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to take questions, comments, or I can just sit down.
Questions by the board?
Ronnie, I'd like to thank you for your dedication and the work you've done on this. I'm aware of all the time you've put in, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Dr. Smart, I want to thank you as well. Your commitment to your community is profound and greatly appreciated. You've cared for hundreds of people in this community, including several of my family members, and I really appreciate taking on a second full-time job from the board position. It shows a real commitment, and thank you, and thank the board as well. I've been to several of your town halls as you guys have gone around the county, and I appreciate it a great deal. You said one thing that stuck in my mind as you were going about the money piece. You said, can we afford to buy the hospital back in 30 years? And maybe I misheard that. Was that?
Yeah, that was a misstatement, Jack.
Okay, I thought so.
Now, in 30 years, we will have to buy the tenant improvements.
Right.
So we do need money to buy back stuff, but we don't have to buy back the hospital or the grounds. We'll own it.
Okay, but just the TIs. The $12 million you cited, is that over the course of 30 years?
No, sir. That's an upfront payment.
It's an upfront payment, and there's an annual payment that goes along with that?
There is lease revenue that will be $100,000 a month.
Super, super. And we spoke briefly about, and I know we spoke about this up in West Point, but speaking of healthcare deserts, and I know, and you're up there as well, I hope that there's some planning or thought going into how we might be able to provide service to that population that is pretty remote and going to the other side of the river for a lot of the healthcare needs.
One of the things we're really interested in, Jack, is a mobile healthcare facility, and we can license that in kind of in tandem with our Valley Springs clinic, and that mobile van or healthcare facility then can service places like West Point, Railroad Flat, Bear Valley, Burson, these remote areas of the county that just don't have a lot. And our board, I think, is fairly committed to doing that. We need to get a clinic built first, but I would guess that's close to follow.
Well, I certainly support Measure A and your efforts on that. I just hopefully we could explore that as it goes forward. I know CHW has been looking at. Actually, that's not called CHW anymore, but have been looking at FQHCs, and certainly our population is going to qualify for just about any fairly qualified healthcare center work. So as that evolves, I'd love to be a part of it and work with your board and the hospital to make that happen.
Excellent. Just so everybody knows, FQHCs, federally qualified healthcare facilities, are really the future of federal government. That's what federal government wants, and that's what they're going to support. That's what Supervisor Garamendi's talking about. We're well aware of that. And I see a time where the Valley Springs Clinic will become an FQHC, and we'll be able to do more FQHCs in this county.
So I know that the hospital likes to make money, and the reimbursements are higher under those. So any way I could help you out, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Mills, your light's on?
Thank you. Dr. Smart, I know we've had long conversations, and I appreciate the effort that not only you have put in, but you have a board that is in a unique place in history in what they're trying to accomplish. I can remember back when the struggles occurred in the 80s, and Bob Campana was on the board, and where it's come from that point to today is an amazing transformation. And I think that everyone who has participated in that, including the past boards, need to be commended for turning it around. A little piece of history, I was working with Marion Ruthroff in installing the second x-ray machine in Mark Twain Hospital back in 1981. But but it provides a unique service that is not comparable to many other counties in California and probably the western states. So I look back to the time that I even spent working as an electrician around Tuolumne General Hospital, and look what happened to it. That kind of thing is...
It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
And it won't be coming back.
And now it's a building that each time I drive by it, I think how sad that moment was when they closed it. And that included their psychological ward that was on the 4th floor and all of the other amenities that went with it. It's gone. So having the ability to have the control from a county level is critical to our long-term success and to our long-term stability for care within our county. And I appreciate the effort that each and every one of you put into it.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Oliveira?
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Smart, once again, thank you for your presentation. I've seen it 4 times, and it gets better every time. There is one issue that I would like the public out there to be aware of. That is in the process of selecting and getting Measure A, renewing this new lease program. Exactly how many bidders did we have?
We really had 3 choices. One was Independence, one was Adventist Health, and one was Dignity Health. All the others opted out. The Independence option is not financially feasible. You're talking 20 to 30 million to get there. The healthcare district has 1.7 million. So independence, although appealing, and particularly in a hard-headed county that likes to be independent, it was particularly appealing, and it's just not feasible, sir. The Adventist Health, they participated for about 6 months, and then they dropped out, and I honestly can't tell you why. They've never told me why. It was a simple phone call on a busy day, and they just said, we can't do this. Thank you very much.
Wow.
We could speculate maybe some antitrust issues. Maybe they didn't want to go head-to-head with a big company. Sir, I'm really not sure, but I'm sure they're out.
Okay. Thank you. I want to encourage the public to really pay attention to Measure A. And personally, I support it. It's something we need to do, and I would encourage every citizen to vote and make Measure A pass. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the time today.
Well, I'd like to commend you and your board for all the work and the commitments you have to this county going forward. And in the past, I think you guys are a wonderful fit here. I support Measure A, and anything that I can do, either personally or as a supervisor, to help you out, don't hesitate to call me or send me an email.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. And at this point, I would like to open up the public comments.
Alsagama Taxpayer Association. I've seen the same presentation several times, and it's a good presentation, and it makes you proud of the hospital. Also, Dr. Smart has a public access TV program called The Doctor Is In, and it is excellent. The only question I have, the district is charging $100,000 per month to the, I guess, the contractor who's running the hospital. How is that money used? Thank you.
So that money is targeted specifically for healthcare in this county. It's being used to help build a clinic. It's going to be used to provide behavioral health services, telehealth services. It's also used for grants. We provide grants to nonprofits that participate in healthcare. Just last month, we provided $50,000 in grants. So it directly goes. It doesn't go into the general fund. It directly goes back into healthcare. It's public money. It's healthcare money.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Any final comment from board members? We're all in support. We're unified on this. So Thank you, Dr. Smort, for your presentation. And thank you, board members that are here. So, do we need time to close down here? Should we take a break, a couple minutes?
I don't know if our next presentation is going to.
I don't, yeah.
I don't think we'll use it for
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break. Michelle, excuse me, Madam Clerk, please read.
Item 21 is from the Administrative Office to receive a report from staff, Cal OES, and local organizations regarding the ongoing Butte Fire recovery.
Good morning, Michelle Patterson, OES Director for Calaveras County. So this morning we've got several presentations as part of the Butte Fire update. I just wanted to provide you with some information first regarding the trees. That is covered under what we call PW 78 for hazardous tree removal. Cal OES has recommended that FEMA approve an extension request that would extend time and dollar amount for us to go in and remove the trees that didn't quite make it.
These are green trees?
Those are the green trees, yeah. Did I get it? All right. Doing better than last time. So that's moving forward, and I've been keeping really close tabs on that particular project, making sure that Cal OAS is on it and FEMA is on it. So hopefully we're going to continue moving forward as if it's going to be approved. Cal OAS has recommended it be approved. So we'll continue planning in that direction. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about insurance recovery.
Jeff Grovitz, Public Works, on hazard tree removal program insurance recovery efforts. Of the 159 parcels that were involved, there are only 41 with outstanding issues on insurance recovery, representing 35 owners. We expect this to be completed in the next couple of months. There will be some letters going out notifying some of these owners that have provided us with insurance that there are portions of that insurance that are due to avoid the duplication of benefits. That's all I have.
Questions?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to also have Mel Knight come up and give a brief update on the work that they're doing.
Good morning, Mel.
Good morning. A very brief update today, I'm glad to announce. Since your last update, we've resolved an additional 30 properties and received about $500,000. As you know, we're nearing closure. This should be, you should get at most 2 more reports like this. And we're fairly certain of that. I'm working with your emergency ops director to make sure that there's a smooth transition and closure, working on the closure planning. We're down to very few. This activity has been done with very few contractor hours, both Tetra Tech and myself, spending just a few hours a week on this now as we're winding down. The fact that we've now, I'll remind you, have now received just under $7 million in dollars received, and have cleared more than 750 of the properties. So it's been very successful. I think we've done quite well on that. We are anticipating closure no later than June, and again, it is being well coordinated. Any questions? Thank you.
Mel.
So with the insurance recovery piece coming to a close, we are working through the process of what we do now with the funding and returning it to the federal government or whatnot. So we're working on that piece as well. I know that was a question at a previous board meeting. Any other questions or comments regarding Butte Fire?
Supervisor Mills, your light was on.
I'll let Supervisor Garamendi go first.
Okay, well, I'm the broken record of this, and everybody could probably recite my questions by memory now. Tell me about the roads and how we're doing on moving forward on that.
The roads, I'm actually
Quincy
gonna,
Engineering contract.
I'm going to actually turn that over to Jeff to answer. But as far as the Butte Fire recovery roads, we received a second RFP went out, and we received a response to that. So
RFP for second RFP for what?
Specifically the emergency relief program roads. which are the Butte Fire roads.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was not included in the Quincy contract?
It was originally, the goal was to include it in that. With the way that the RFP went out, as the DBE requirements were not within that, so we had to issue just for those ER roads. It's a smaller subset of the roads. You still have the other PW roads that are covered under the existing RFP. Quincy was the only bidder, so it will be coordinated between the group, fortunately, so it'll make it more easy on that piece. But the next piece would be the developing and issuing all of the task orders on those projects.
Okay.
And that's what I think Mr. Krovitz can talk to in terms of the task orders. In order to, I will add to it, in order recognizing the importance of this, what we've set up now is going to be a weekly call with Quincy, Public Works, OES, and administration to be setting milestones and timelines, making sure that we're meeting these deadlines and sticking to what we've said are the timelines. We recognize this needs to be kicked into high gear, and if it means weekly calls to make sure that we're on track, that's what we're doing.
Thank you very much.
And that information will then feed into a more consolidated report, monthly report to this board. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Please don't run away. Oh, you're going to get him, okay.
Jeff Krovitz, concerning the public assistance roads as part of the Butte Fire. Quincy's team was out last week doing their initial field review, and they are now putting together their task orders to execute the work, which is preliminary engineering forwarded on to Cal OES and FEMA for environmental approval, and then requests for bids from contractors to execute the work. So that's the status.
Question?
No. Mr. Chair? Mr. Clovis, thank you very much. Now, I know that we're out to RFPs for boots on the ground work for roads under the management skills of Quincy. Our contracts, does that call for prevailing wage, and does it call for local contractors to perform that under the guidance of Quincy?
Prevailing wage is more applicable to the request for bids, the construction contracts, not necessarily for professional services contract. This is a professional services contract. And then the second part of your question, is there a preference allowed for locals for contracts prepared by Quincy? The public assistance program does not, the federal public assistance program does not recognize preferences for locals. And so that language was not included in the original RFP.
Okay. Doesn't mean it's excluding it, though.
No, absolutely
It's not required.
No. It just says everybody competes on the same footing.
And is there any way that the county has any influence in that decision other than meet and greet type things? I know we have no leverage on that, being federal funds.
All we can do is what we normally do, which is to outreach to our locals and let them know that these things are available, and hope they bid on them, hope they propose.
Thank you, Mr. Clovis.
Supervisor Mills.
It wasn't for Mr. Krovitz, so thank you. Maybe this is for Michelle, or it's possibly for the CAO, but in referencing agenda item number 16 and this continuing resolution, have we really started to sit down and decide what our endpoint is in terms of time? Are we working to a specific point? Or are we just going to keep going? Because we're rolling into 2.5 years here. This could easily go to 3 years, and then what is the end? So I think the board should really start to decide with these declarations that we have 4 now. Do we have any general idea what those endpoints are going to be? And if we add another one, we should always be thinking about at what point are we going to get this done and be able to close it out. So the question for you is basically agenda item 16, a continuing resolution on the Butte Fire. Is there an endpoint in mind here, and I'm not going to stick you to a specific date, but that we are thinking about that very seriously, of getting this one off our books?
Absolutely. It's my intention to move these as quickly as we can to becoming closed out disasters. I would really like to continue to move forward and manage the present and the future of emergency management here in this county. And so there's, but there's still a lot of work to do from the past. So I think with now the weekly phone calls and having Quincy on board and having a variety of these other pieces together, I think we can start pushing that and have a better idea of what the end point is going to be. And I'd like it to be sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, we have to keep it open until it's closed out at the FEMA level and at the Cal OES level, because we are going to be continuing to receive funding reimbursements for those disasters for some time. So I would need to consult with Cal OES and with FEMA to determine at what point can we close this out as a local declaration.
Thank you. I think that's a critical question. It needs to be answered so we're not prolonging the pain, if you want to call it that. Thank you.
I would agree. I think there's a few things that people who survived the Butte fire would like more than to get the roads done, everything fixed, and try to get back to some sense of normalcy. So I really personally appreciate your willingness to ride close herd on this.
Yep.
It's something that's very important. One of the things we spoke about at mid-year budget, and I know it was spoken about when I was gone the other week, Supervisor Mills brought it up, is the context of really having, we have to front, but we have to pay for this and then seek reimbursement. So we sort of have to seed this and then continually fill the bucket as we move forward. Has there been conversations, and maybe this is for the CAO as well, about how we'll put together, for lack of a better term, that revolving operating fund to really get things moving? Knowing that, taking confidence in our state and federal officials to reimburse us, moving ahead, can you guys sort of update us on how that conversation's going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the first step for us was going through and outlining what the true costs are going to be, because that's been our challenge, is really getting a firm hold on that. That's why with Quincy going out doing their assessments and now developing basically these task orders that are going to say, for this road, this is what we're going to need to do, that gives us a firm cost. Start to overlay that with what we know we have for fund balance going into next year, what we know we have in reserve general fund. All of that provides an opportunity for cash flow, because we don't have to, we can outlay the money and then expect reimbursement for it. So that's what we've been putting together, but a lot is going to depend on what Quincy comes back with for what our final tallies are going to be. And also looking at it not just from the Butte fire, but winter storms and tree mortality. These 3 disaster projects that we're carefully looking at, balancing and making sure that we have enough cash on hand to wait for reimbursement. The good news is, and our experience has shown, FEMA is sticking true to reimbursement on the Butte fire-related activities. Winter storm might be a different story, and we'll start to see that now as we have more experience with some of the winter storm damage like Murphy's Bridge. But for the Butte fire, we have been receiving reimbursement roughly 4, 5, 6 month timeline. So we kind of see that as our lag.
Okay, well, let's just make sure. I mean, we're in a lucky position right now. We do have some funds, so we don't have a cash flow, and we just need to be really judicious and strategic about how we expend them and keep these programs rolling. As we weren't in this position a while ago, but we are today, and we should make sure we get things done. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a question, Michelle. We talked about the green trees and moving forward with those. We do have a number of trees on BLM, and we haven't addressed that yet. Can you address how we're going to move forward and get that resolved?
Absolutely. So we're in the process right now of putting together a contract, and it should be done within the next few weeks with TSS to do the project management on that project. Unfortunately, those trees won't be reimbursed as far as I'm knowledgeable about. Because it would be a federal agency paying to remove trees from another federal agency's land. So we do have that. It should be moving forward within the next few weeks to get a plan together to put that
Is there
to
a
rest.
cost estimate on that? And to dovetail into that also, is there a way, since it's BLM, to send BLM a bill for the cost to remove those trees?
This is
I
a
know it sounds
conversation
funny,
that
but
far preceded me,
yeah,
but it's a conversation that's been had.
Yeah.
Actually, Jeff, would you be care to come discuss the cost per tree? I think Jeff knows the cost per tree range. There's a range that
Have we
is-
discussed, because I think the supervisor here has a very good idea. If this is a private individuals that's threatening our roads, and we had to do an abatement on them, we would charge them. So why would we do anything different if a federal agency is causing us threat?
Well, so it's the reimbursement piece. So that's sort of the piece, but I'm gonna.
Mr. Chair? Yes. This is an issue that we're addressing on tree mortality. I know we're talking Butte Fire here, but I'd like to address that on the next agenda item. And the information received from our tree mortality in Sacramento might provide some information.
insight too. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So.
Jeff? Mr. Grovitz?
Concerning the BLM trees, or the trees that are adjacent to county-maintained roads on BLM land, BLM has indicated that they do not have funding for this remediation. That's the claim that they are purporting. And they are indicating that the county has responsibility to maintain the implied right-of-way through their lands that we have been maintaining for decades. That is BLM's position. FEMA's position, as Michelle stated, was that FEMA will not reimburse for trees removed on another federal agency. They assume each federal agency has the ability to get their own funds for that. The only thing that BLM has offered to date is assistance with NEPA clearance for the treatment of these trees. And then finally, concerning cost associated with these, much of the driving cost of the debris removal trees that we've done under the FEMA program, a large chunk of that was driven by environmental monitoring, debris monitoring, having an approved debris treatment site. All of those add cost to the removal. So without that overhead, without the federal overhead of that type of work, the work can be done for less money. How much less money? The question is, what are we going to do? Are we going to lay the trees down, get them away from potential collisions with vehicles and leave them, or are we going to actually haul them off and treat them at a site?
You made a statement about NEPA, and we've had many meetings and we've discussed what kicks in for NEPA. And most of all the conversations we had was federal funding for the project. Now, we're not going to be federally funded here, although it is on federal lands. Is there do we need NEPA, even though it's not being funded by any federal monies at all?
According to what BLM has told us, yes, because it's on federal lands.
And they're telling you they're willing to help, but they're not going to provide anything other than telling you we're going to help. And what level that is, we're not sure.
They have given an outline to us saying they want us to use pre-approved archaeologists, biologists, kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes.
I understand that we had 2.7 million that was outstanding reimbursements from at mid-year. It was 2.7 million that was listed there.
Sorry, that look was trying to remember exactly how much it was outstanding at mid-year, but that does sound.
It's okay, don't challenge my memory, I got it. So that has been received?
Honestly, I don't know that answer. I'll find it and get back to you.
Well, the point is that as Supervisor Garamendi was talking about with this cash flow thing, that whenever we get into these kind of issues, we should be automatically setting aside a fund of some type for that. It's like a grant. You pay the money out, then you get the money back kind of thing. That we should be setting a fund in the chart of accounts or something immediately when we declare a state of emergency, so we have that accounting process funded all the way through. We know where the money's coming from or going to, and I hope that is what we've done here. So as money comes into the accounts for Butte Fire, that we know where we got it from and we know where we're going to put it back. And that's going to be really critical.
Thank you for the auditor controller for listening, who sent me a note saying that all public assistance funds have been received at this point. In answer to the first part, the second piece being, I agree. I think to a point, you can do that in a number of ways without having to set up a new designated fund. You could identify the fact that you have a large general fund contingency that is basically provides you cash flow, that you're maintaining kind of up to that general fund contingency amount, knowing that you have that as available cash at this point, but you wouldn't then overspend beyond what that contingency is. That could be one option to accomplish that, and set a threshold of, say, we want to put aside $4 million for that purpose. That would probably be the easiest mechanism that doesn't require setting up another designated fund that then you have to unwind later on. But certainly I think that's a good suggestion, something we can look at as we get into budget for how we might do that.
Oh, hello. It's easy for a board to declare a state of emergency, but there's so much paperwork and things that happen in the background with staff that I don't think we sometimes understand the complexity to make it happen.
Just come over to my office and you can see all the piles that are everywhere. And that's what all that is basically it's all related to, we have a whole wall in our payroll department that's just for records related to Butte Fire. So a couple of things I've been listening over in my office and then ran over here. All of the public assistance funds and CDAA funds that we've claimed, that we can claim, have been received. Wow. So last year's receivables have been received. This year's claims that we can claim have been received. So at this point, I am coordinating with Michelle because there's nothing more that we can claim, but we're continuing to incur expenses. So we're coordinating with Michelle and Cal OES to get extensions of existing projects because under public assistance, there are specific time frames, whether it's emergency protective measures or debris removal or permanent work. And so for Butte Fire, a lot of those kind of windows have already closed. So we've been coordinating with Cal OES to get extensions of those respective projects. And then Cal OES, if we've gone past their authority, are working with FEMA to get that additional extension. And we're doing that in coordination with Michelle and OES for Butte Fire projects and winter storm projects. So in addition to that, we've reached limits on the projects themselves in terms of the amount that was obligated by FEMA. We talked about this morning about the additional scope of work changes on the tree removal project for the hazardous trees. So we're asking for a reversion of that project. And once that gets approved, then we'll be able to submit the costs that we're incurring right now for reimbursement. It just is a long process, and you have to follow their requirements and the order of operations, and so it's likely that we will have expenses this year that we won't be able to claim even this year And if we are able to claim them somehow this year, we probably won't see the funds for those this year. If you recall, and some of this happened prior to this board getting elected, and some of it has happened subsequently, I had made a comment, it was right after the RIM fire, and I said we really need to prepare in case we have our RIM. And then we did. So one of the actions that was taken was to actually increase our general fund reserve. And so the general fund reserve was a little over $2 million. Now it is over $4 million. So when you talk about we need to have some sort of a fund, that was the intent of putting that additional money aside, was a way to buffer some of the cash flow issues that we might experience. And we've continued to do that. Even in this budget, there is a $700,000 allotment that was budgeted this year to increase that general fund reserve. So we do use that for purposes of cash flow. So the good news is that we really haven't had, it's taken us so long to get a lot of these projects going that we have not had significant cash flow issues, except for kind of that beginning period when the hazardous tree removal project was going on. In that respect, there was some pretty significant dollars that we were paying out, but it just happened to coincide with the same time frame that we had gotten property taxes in, that we had gotten some other forms of revenue in, that was able to kind of buffer that along with the reserve. So we do keep an eye on that, and we look for internal borrowing opportunities everywhere that we can. So we've been pretty well leveraged in that department. I have asked that we do a kind of a project plan with all of the projects, because that can get away from us very quickly. So if we were going to turn around and actually, immediately start doing all of the road recovery program or projects under public assistance and the ER program for Butte Fire, and then you counter that on top of winter storm, and then let's just say you have just other capital projects that are going on, that could be, kind of a problem. So I have asked for an idea of what are we looking at in terms of each project that we have out there that's been approved, what the time frames are for those. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that information from Quincy, and then also in coordination with the Public Works Department of projects that they have, in addition with coordination with administration for projects that they have, so that we can look at it on a county-wide perspective. How much are we thinking we're going to be out at any given time? If, it's $30 million, but it's over a period of 5 years, we can handle that. If it's $30 million and it's over an 18-month period, then, we might have to do some prioritization there. So those are just kind of some of the things that we're talking about, and just trying to figure out how to plan that.
I think it's really critical that we really understand the need to flow chart the timelines. And for budgetary purposes, it's critical more so than any other spot.
Yes.
So I just want this in the public's view so everybody understands that it's great to declare these states of emergency, but if we don't have a timeline as to how we're going to pull them across, it puts your office in a pickle, and it creates an enormous amount of extra paperwork and time to sort through it. So I just want it to be a discussion right now so everybody understands that we're going to get into another state of emergency somewhere. It's inevitable. But when we do, maybe we'll learn from what we did this time and help to already pre-create, and what do you call that, pre-disaster planning?
Pre-disaster planning.
Yes, darn. And create that so that you already know what you need to do and those steps that you need to take, and stop the struggle.
Yeah, and I think the struggle that we've had under Butte Fire and under Winter Storm is that we did what FEMA told us not to do, which was to absorb as much as we could on our own. And that just does not bode well because we already are strapped in terms of personnel. And then we already have our day-to-day activities going on. And so the idea that we can just kind of take all this on and kind of absorb those activities, it really just doesn't work. So it creates this this kind of lack of response and lack of recovery, which is what we've seen. So I will be grateful when we can have contractors, which are easier for my office to track, easier for FEMA and Cal OES to see exactly who's on first and what's on second, and get some feedback back from them. And then there was another, you had asked if there's a local preference. The federal grants do not allow for local preference.
Supervisor Garamendi?
Thank you.
Okay.
You nailed exactly on the 5 years and the $30 million question. And then if we get a crunch, we do have to have a prioritization process, which I assume the board would be a part of, because you're right. If you guys figure out a way to do everything, great. If you have to prioritize, let's have that conversation. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, for
Thank you.
coming. Thank you. All right, this time I'll open it up for public comments. Any public comments in all of this? Al?
Complex situation. I appreciate the work you're doing. I really agree with Dennis Mills that you need to find out the extent of the problem. I understand you're working on that now. We don't know when we're going to find out what needs to be done, remaining to be done. And so at that point, then I assume you can plan and prioritize the work that needs to be done. So when do we anticipate getting that answer? When do we anticipate knowing the work that remains to be done? And also on the other item about protection for local contractors in a contract, that sometimes that backfires. We do that with the best of intentions to try to help our local people. But sometimes the person in the next county or even the next state will give us a better deal for the taxpayers, a better deal for the public, which allows less waste of money and a better job. So protectionism can backfire. You have to be very careful with that. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yesterday, I went to Mariposa, and I got to Moccasin, and they wouldn't let me through. So I had to go through Yosemite. And I noticed where they have a fire and a lot of dead trees that are from the recent fire that they had over in that area. And there's also brush growing up in those trees. And I hate to see that because it's really timber growing land rather than brush. I don't think it's a natural state for brush to take over a mountainside or a lot of mountainsides. And I think that there should be preventative maintenance in that respect to not let the brush take over, to do something to keep that from happening and let the rejuvenation of the forest happen. And I also noticed that on my way back, I went through Hornitas. And on the way to Hornitas, there were about 4 bridges that had been being worked on. And they were doing preventative maintenance. In other words, on both sides of the bridge, they were digging out and making it so when water came up, that it would have a place to go and it wouldn't be so destructive. They were using some natural rock in that. And I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Michelle, you have any parting words for us?
Okay, so I just wanted to touch on his question real quick as to when will we know what has to be done. At this point, we know what has to be done. It's a matter of figuring out all of the details, what it's going to cost, what reversion requests need to be done, So, and with Quincy on board now, we're hoping to get those timelines soon, so. Within the next month or so, I hope. Sure.
Okay, well, that was an informational item. We are close to 12 o'clock. And
Think we
next
can-
item has to do with tree mortality. This one took quite a while. I don't know what the extent is for the next one. You're presenting tree mortality one. I'll pull the board. You want to go to lunch, or do you want to go through this item?
I think we can continue this item. Actually, I think we can get this item done before lunch.
I think we can too.
I think we can. I think we can do it.
We could do it. Shouldn't seem very efficient.
We've already been talking
Let's
enough.
move forward. We are going to move forward with the next item. Madam Clerk. We'll give you more than 3.
Item 22 is from the Office of Emergency Services to receive a tree mortality implementation update from TSS Consultants and authorize the CAO purchasing agent to award subsequent bids not to exceed $250,000.
Michelle.
Michelle Patterson. Oh, yes. So this item is twofold. Part of it is for you to receive an update from TSS, and I'm not going to steal his thunder on it because it's a pretty good one. So we're moving forward. We're making progress. In the next few weeks, we should start seeing trees come down, which is good. The other piece of this is to have you authorize the CAO to make to authorize subsequent bid requests. And that really is just to expedite the projects so that we can get them through as quickly as possible. And Tad will talk to the progress that we're making on the next project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted.
Thank you, Michelle. And I fully understand I stand between the board and lunch, so I'll make this quick. My last presented February 27th, so this is basically every 45-day update, basically. We've made good progress. We've issued 900 right of entry forms, mostly in the Arnold, Blue Lake Springs area right now. With the returns, we've had 500 returns, so that's 60% return rate, not bad. Especially when you look how other counties are doing with their return rates, we're doing okay. Because of that return rate, we've been able to issue an invitation to bid on our first tree mortality project. It's our pilot project, and with direction from the CAO and the admin team, our pilot project was relatively small, just 50 trees, but believe it or not, we received 14 bids on that project, very competitive bids, by the way, and right now we're working with admin to issue a contract to the tree service company. They're based out of Sonora, somewhat local. We did get bids from as far away as the Bay Area. So our outreach, we cast a pretty wide net, and it was very competitive, by the way. It came in at less than $200 per tree, which is pretty good, especially when you consider a residential area. Very, very competitive. So that's project 1A, our pilot project. Project 2, we're going to ramp up, again, at the CAO's recommendation. Economies of scale, we're going to about 330 trees across almost 200 lots in Fly-In Acres and Blue Lake Springs. Our first project was Pine Brook, very small, but we're expanding now. And we also have projects 3, 4, and 5, all within that Highway 4 corridor going north and east to the county lines. So we're concentrating on that area. We're hoping in the next 60 days to start in the Glencoe West Point area, which we see as the next concentration of hazardous trees amongst a residential area. So we're making good progress. In order to solicit that 60% return rate, there's a lot of outreach that's going on. We've had press releases. We had a banner in downtown Arnold. We hope to put that banner back up again when we send our next wave of right of entry forms. We'll be presenting May 5th at the Wildfire Awareness Conference up in the Arnold area. So we're working right now very closely with the organization team on that. In the next 60 days, We're expecting to start dropping trees on that first project because the contract will be let. And in the next 60 days or so, we also hope to be implementing project number 2. We learned a lot from the first pilot project invitation to bid process. We now have a template to work from, and all it is just plug and play for project 2. So we're anticipating a strong response from the tree service companies and plan to have that implemented again within the next 30 to 45 days. We're working with the Forest Service, Sheep Ranch Road, a lot of mortality there that potentially impacts public safety, and so we're working with the Calaveras Ranger District on that. And with the federal process being, as we know, somewhat challenging, we're doing our best to facilitate that whole process. We're updating the task force, Tree Mortality Task Force website to make it more relevant. We'll also be talking about this tomorrow at the task force meeting on how that is going. And that is pretty much my update. I'll have the next update in mid-May, but at this point I can field questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor.
Thank you very much for coming in. Just a couple of quick notes. $200 a tree?
Yes, sir.
That's outstanding. We were in a meeting yesterday at the Governor's Task Force, and PG&E and some other utilities were up to $2,800 a tree by the time they figure in all of their overhead, their administration for sending out right of entry forms, things of that sort, all the way down. So that's outstanding. If they can get that work done, that's a great job. One quick question.
We have a
Are
good
your
team.
operators lumber timber operators?
Are they
Licensed, certified lumber timber operators?
Yes, licensed timber operators, LTO. The contractor of choice is also a licensed tree service company, so they're
Excellent.
both. Yes.
That's great. And last quick question on this. What do you do with the trees that are near residences within 100 feet? I mean, that's going to take more than $200 worth of dropping a tree.
Well, it may, but the tree service companies take ownership of those trees and are able to market them themselves. And because they have access to a sawmill in Standard, they have an access to export tree markets in McClellan by Sacramento, and we also have Martell with the Ampine site. So there is some value to that roundwood, and because we're getting out kind of in a timely fashion, they're able to optimize that. We hope to replicate that with the BLM trees eventually in the Butte Fire. In fact, I think there will be some value to that roundwood, but first we have to get to it.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Ted, I just want to, that's a great price, and I'm glad we're moving forward. The tree service companies that are dropping the trees, they're keeping the wood, they're hauling it out?
yes,
So they're owning it, and what they go with,
right.
it's their problem.
We're not setting up a yard.
Super.
They're going to market it themselves.
And up on the Glencoe, West Point, people start getting stuff in the next 60 days or so. So we're looking at end of summer, beginning of fall, some activity.
Right. So our first visits will be in the next 60 days, and then we have to set up the projects. We also need to send out the right of entry forms.
Right. But we're looking at, we'll start seeing trees dropping late summer, early fall, I'm guessing.
To be realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nice work.
They own the trees. What about the sash? What's happening with all that?
On the slash?
Yeah.
Per the forest practice rules, it has to be treated, either chipped and scattered or actually removed. And because they're licensed timber operators, they're very familiar with that process, and we'll hold them to it.
So that's all part of the contract, too?
Yes, sir.
So once they're out of there, it's completely gone?
That's right.
Yep, okay.
Now there may be the case, the rare case, where there's a septic system or some sensitive infrastructure that's going to force us to leave a log, drop that tree and leave it. The slash will still be treated, but we do have to be sensitive to private property and that infrastructure. So it may be the odd situation when we have to leave a log or two, but that will be the exception.
Any other question from the board? Public comments? No public comments? All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
It's an informational item. Thank you. Hold on. Supervisor Mills?
Says and to authorize to award subsequent bids. That's an action item.
Well, it is an action item, excuse me, it is. I had it on the previous one.
Sorry.
It is.
Need a motion?
Do I need a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi,
Second.
a second by Supervisor Oliveira. Any further discussion? Sure.
I see Bonnie in here. She might be able to answer this question because I think it is a relevant question to make sure that the board knows what we're trying to approve here. For the sake of expediency, what we were wanting is to allow me to sign off on these contracts. What I think is an important question is the liability insurance for the contractors, and I'm hoping Bonnie might be able to speak to the requirements that we have for the liability insurance, if you know it offhand. And I think specifically to the supervisor's question about if they're fallen trees next to a house and potentially falls on a person or property, kind of what our liability requirements are for the contractors.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Bonnie Rich Administration. In addition to the insurance requirements as established by, I believe it's the state for the foresters, the $2 million aggregate general liability, $1 million auto, of course, workers' comp if there are employees, and all of those with the exception of the workers' comp naming the county as additional insured. So we are additionally endorsed on those insurance policies. It's pretty much the standard requirements.
So they are naming us additionally insured?
The county is named as additional insured, yes,
assuming
sir.
all liability, we're waiving
Yes.
liability for the county?
Yes.
And they are sending a copy of their workers' comp to the county for our files on this contract?
As a part of the contract approval process, after we draft the contract, we route it through risk management and county council for their review. Included in that packet are evidence of all the liability coverages. We verify prior to award that they are not disbarred federally or by the state. If they are a LLC or a corporation, we confirm that they are registered with the Secretary of State. So we do all of those things to make sure that we have all the protections afforded to the county under contract.
Before they start work, though, we should have in our hands and in our file a certificate of
We have it before they even sign the contract.
okay, for workers' comp.
Yes.
And then a certified letter from their insurance company naming us additionally insured.
That is correct.
Okay, so as long as we have those.
Yes. And a traffic control plan.
A traffic
also,
control plan,
as well,
yes, certified
submitted
traffic
by a
control.
licensed traffic control contractor.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions from the public since we opened that back up? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. I have a motion and a second. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll go to lunch. We'll resume at 1:30.